Hello and welcome to The Platform, a new podcast from the team at Game Train, where we'll be interviewing people on their thoughts and experiences in the gaming industry. I'm Callan Davison, and joining me on the platform this week is Tim Gadler. Welcome, Tim.
Oh, hello, and I feel honoured to
Yes,
be here
for the very first. Yes, for the launch of this brand new podcast.
So special. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so you were a reviewer for Sega Megazone.
Yes,
back
that's
in
right.
the early 90s.
Yes.
Where you did reviews, walkthroughs, and also did some Sega Hotline operating as well.
That was the main part. So the main part was doing the hotline, and the side part was doing the reviews and walkthroughs for games.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how did you get started in this back in the day?
All right. So what happened when I was a young kid? I've got type 1 diabetes, so I had a lot of problems with my health.
Yep.
So I had a thing called... what happens is that your blood sugars keep on going higher and higher and higher, and you go into a thing called ketone acidosis. And I would just go into comas all the time. So I was always in hospital during my teens. So there wasn't really much I could do in hospital or be at home other than play video games. So I started off with your standard Pong set, which was in 1980. Then I worked up to a TRS-80, and I don't know why. I'm still having a hard time trying to understand why I got it. I think it was because the C64 was a thing.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like the next best thing. I don't think it was the next best thing. I think it was the worst thing at the time.
Yeah.
And then I got an Atari 2600, and then I saw the Master System, which was about in 88, 87, 88, even 89, around about then.
Yeah.
And I got hooked on that. Yeah.
Was there a reason why you went down the Sega path rather than like the Nintendo path?
It just looked great.
Yeah.
The thing is if you compare to what the Atari had on offer and what the Commodore had on offer, and then you look at Sega and you want to compare arcade machine games and porting them back home, Sega was doing the best job of that. Okay. All right, simply by best graphics at the time, best colours, best gameplay. All right, so that's what hooked me onto Sega. Was basically you could play the arcade games from the arcades back at home. Yeah.
Right. So then you were playing a lot of video games back then. So how did you transition from just playing video games into actually writing about video games?
Being the person to... All right. So what happened when I was in hospital, there wasn't much else I could do. So I wanted to know more about Sega. I was a big fanboy. And what I did was that I got in touch with a person in the US by the name of Judy. She worked for Sega of America.
Okay.
And back then, you didn't have internet. You only had pen and paper. Okay. So we did this thing called being a pen pal, and it sounds so vintage nowadays, but that was the only way you could communicate back then. So what I had to do was I wrote a few letters and said, I was a big fan and that, and Judy got back in touch. And I think she was partial head of customer relationships. Okay. And we built up a friendship from that. So
that's amazing that she actually got back to you.
Oh, yeah. Well, but that was the thing. I don't know whether Nintendo would have done that. I don't know if many others would have done that. I knew that Atari did that. I was listening to some interviews there about how they would get back to people because they get something like 30,000 letters a month. That's how crazy it was back then. Yeah, and that was back in the Atari 26 days. So Sega of America, I hate to know how many they got.
Yeah.
Wow. So I thought it was just absolutely awesome at the time. I felt so special. So we're sending back letters to each other. And it's telling me she was telling me what games are coming out, and she'd give me a cheat code for the game that hadn't been released at that time. We had this thing because when I was in hospital a lot, I watched, sadly, a lot of soap opera. So they had Days of Our Lives, and I was watching it. And so we'd be talking about where everybody, what I was seeing compared to what she was seeing. So we had a little bit of soap opera talk, but then get back onto the video games and that. So one day I got a box, and obviously it came from her, and I opened it up. It was full of sheets of paper, and they were all typed out. I'm like, oh, what's this? So I looked at it, and what it had was walkthroughs and cheat codes, but not only for the games that we had in Australia at that time, but all the other games that were yet to be released. So if you wanted to measure it up, we only had about 30% of the games at that time. Yeah. All right. So we're still another 70% behind. So I'm sitting on this mother load of information that I didn't know what to do with it. Okay. So what I did, I just sat there and looked at it and didn't think anything of it. And then one day I looked on the back of the cartridge, or back on one of the boxes there, and it said, "Do you need some help? Call the Sega Hotline." Yeah. And I thought, okay. And I noticed that it was a 02 number, so obviously up in Sydney. Yeah. Okay, so rang him up, gave him a go. Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I started becoming fanboy again, and I started saying, I really like to work for you guys. I know so much about video games and that. And I kept on bugging them every week, what's coming out of that. And I think they just gave in to me, and they just gave me an interview, right? So I sat down there and I said, so what do you think of video games? And, talked all about them. Who's your favourite fan? I thought, Sonic was great and all that. And then I got the inevitable question, what makes you think, why do you think you're good for this company? What can you bring that other people don't? And I had this bit of paper in my bag, and I slid it across the table. Yeah. And again, what? Hang on, that game hasn't been released. How did you get your hands on it? And I explained my story again. Yeah. Okay. And they said, well, can you get us more? And I was like, it depends, Yeah. So maybe it was a bit of bribery. Maybe it was the wealth of knowledge that I had. Yeah. And because of that, about a few days later, when I drove back down to back home, they offered me the job, but all that information pretty much set up the hotline. So because we hadn't had those games yet, and trying to get information from Sega of America and Sega of Japan was like trying to get blood from a stone. Okay. And so they would only drip feed it to us, but there we had it all. Wow! So we could update the database like 50-fold, 10-fold. I don't know, just a whole lot of information that we didn't even know about. Wow! Yeah. Huh. So that's what helped out the hotline.
Nice. So from there you started working for them. So what was, I guess, some of the first reviews or walkthroughs you sort of started working on?
It wasn't straight away because the first thing was basically getting used to working. It was my first ever job. So I always say I peaked very early. So it wasn't until about 6 months later I started doing little reviews and that. And I wasn't, and to be honest, I wasn't the best at reviewing simply because of my education. You got to understand, being in hospital all the time didn't give me the opportunity to finish school. So I finished year 11 technically, but I only did 3 weeks of school. So more realistically, I only did year 10. So my writing skills weren't that great. The other problem I had was that I shared my thoughts a little bit too honestly.
Where they wanted it to be all pro Sega along
Yeah,
the way.
well, Megazone was owned by Sega, so
Yeah.
therefore you've got to have an obvious bias towards how you're going to review.
Yeah.
So I would say that this game sucks, whereas it would have to be edited to, this game is not for everyone. So
This game has some challenges.
it has some challenges, I at that time, because of my education, I wasn't that artful with my words, So, but some of the games I did was Crash Test Dummies. Ironically, I saw the other day, I did the review for Outrun 2019. And I said I never knew I had I was like foretelling the future as to what we'll be driving in the future. I think I got the jet car thing wrong,
Nice.
So I didn't do the more popular titles.
Okay,
I left that to some of the other. I didn't leave to. It was given to the other guys that were better with their writing skills. So. We had Nick Smith. He had his twin brother, Tim. Yeah, so we had two Tims.
Yeah.
And Brian, okay, who runs a channel, YouTube channel called Sin Spacies. Okay. Yeah. So they were the better ones at it. I was given sort of like the not so good games, and I can respect that. I would have been too nervous to do a double page spread. Yeah. On a new release game like, I don't know, Sonic, for example. So
Yeah. Nice. So you also did walkthroughs as well, where you would have to pretty much finish a game in a night, or over a very quick period of time, and get something written up for a walkthrough. Yeah.
So the two main walkthroughs I did was one for Flashback. And the other one was Rocket Knight Adventures.
Yes.
Yeah. I can hear it from the tone of your voice.
I know that game. I played that game a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
The old Rocket Knight. I never finished it though.
Really?
I got quite far. But...
Here's my walkthrough. So the way it would work is that you pretty much get told at the 11th hour as to what game you had to do the walkthrough for. So to give you an example, Flashback. So we'll get the game, I'll go home, have dinner, and then crack the game that night.
Yep.
Start to finish, and you play, you pause, you write out your little thing, okay, on a bit of paper. Play, pause, try not to die. All right. And with Flashback, fortunately, you had saving points as you went through.
Right. Yep.
Thank God for that. So I cracked the game. I think I got about 2 hours sleep that night. And then the next morning, I woke up. I had to go to the publishers and play the whole goddamn thing again. Wow. But at the same time, I had one of the publishers next to me taking the screenshots. And what people don't understand, today you do a screenshot, no worries, edit, it's so quick.
Yeah.
Then it would take about 3 minutes for every shot.
Wow.
So by how I didn't die by the time I did this.
I imagine the pressure would have been quite high having someone sitting next to you at that stage as well. It's like, all right, finish the game again while I now take screenshots of this.
The more of the pressure was the time frames, because publishers have deadlines, and so we've got to get this done by this time. So it didn't matter how I played. It was just more of a case of the pressure of the deadline before they do their final print.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, a lot of pressure there, mate.
Yeah, because I remember Flashback wasn't an easy game either.
Oh, no.
It was like Another World, one of those ones where you die lots and it's hard to figure everything out.
And there's a certain sequence you have to go through. And, like, I was already fairly skilled on the first 3 levels back at that time. It was beyond that. Because, that's where the pressure was. Right. So I could easily write out the first 3 levels. and get through those. And I would still have to make notes just to make sure I don't forget anything. But after that...
Yeah. Wow.
Mate.
So you worked for the actual hotline as well?
Yes.
And were you taking calls on the hotline?
Oh, yeah.
And how was that?
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. I always say that the main callers were obviously children.
Yeah.
And lonely housewives.
Yeah.
So, lonely housewives, the kids have gone off to school. Great. I've got the Mega Drive all on my own. So start playing about. And so, kids would obviously call up about the more popular games like your Sonics, your action games and all that.
Yep.
But the Lonely Housewives would play the RPGs. Like Wonder Boy in Monster World or Landstalker or Ultima or something like that.
I was actually playing Landstalker the other day.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, I played it when I was a kid, and a little off topic, I downloaded a Sega Mega Drive collection on my Switch. So I've been playing like Shining Force 2 and games like that. Landstalker's on there. I jumped back on there. Was giving that a whirl, but sorry.
No. They're good memories. Like, look, personally myself, I was never really into RPGs.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the time or patience for that sort of rubbish. So, great, you've got 8 hit points. Oh, yeah, So there was 2 of the guys at work were right into Landstalker. So there was something about that I wasn't too sure about. That we couldn't really convey something on the database.
Yeah.
I would get these guys to help out.
Okay.
So. So they were the main callers, but it was just fun working there, and the guys that I worked with, they were fun as well. So we were just young. We're all in our early 20s. We're just starting our working lives. So and we're working this dream job.
Yeah.
So you can just think about these guys in the 90s with their sneakers up on the desks and wearing loose clothing back then. That was the thing, and we're surrounded by Sonic merchandise, and we've got all having a muck around and that, and someone's playing games and someone's updating the database and everybody's taking the mickey out of each other, and then we take a call, and it was just
it sounds
fun.
like a good fun work environment to be in.
It's great. It was absolutely great. So it's just a representation of the company.
Yeah,
it's just fun.
So these days you're obviously not working for Sega, etc.
No.
How come you left, or what happened? What ended your relationship?
It wasn't really by choice.
Yeah. Okay.
So what happened? The hotline got sold off to the to a telemarketing company, that was set in Bondi Junction up in Sydney. And what happened, they basically got rid of all the staff. And it's a bit sad too, because what they did was... they got rid of all the staff bar a couple just to set the guys up there, but then they were let go. But what happened was they hired young people that liked video games but didn't love Sega. You know what I'm saying? They didn't love Sega. The other problem as well is... they weren't allowed to play video games.
What?
So you think about it. If you're dealing with somebody on the phone, like a 9-year-old kid, and they say, I'm stuck in a room, and I'm playing this game, you would know after playing that game, you know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But if you don't play the game...
Oh, wow, yeah. It's like, describe the room, or,
Yeah, so they weren't allowed to play the games, which sucked.
That's bizarre. I can't understand that at all.
And here's the clincher. Then they wanted to start charging $1 a minute.
Right, yeah.
Now, you think about it. So you got people that aren't that passionate as the previous staff members. You got people that are not experienced, have no idea how to play these games.
Yep.
And then you add that on with charging $1 a minute, which is, quite frankly, the parents' money.
Yeah.
You can see where this is going.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, no, it's...
They were
just going for the cash in the end rather than...
Yeah.
Yeah, and going at $1 a minute, you got people that aren't going to be very quick at explaining what's supposed to be going on, etc., etc.
That's right. Right.
Charges rack up. Yeah,
that's just so sad. But the days were numbered for Sega in Australia because of the PlayStation coming through and everyone getting drawn to that.
Yeah. And the Dreamcast disaster and how that sort of flopped and...
Yeah, it flopped. Well, the Saturn was a flop because it was a rush job at the end of the day, right? So, they've put together a whole new console in 1 year. How do you do it?
Yeah.
So there's your first mistake. The second mistake is once that's all gone downhill, then how do you win people back? You rush out another system, don't you? Well, yeah, that's what they did, and
yeah.
So and look, you can listen to Tom Kalansky and the other heads of Sega in America, and they'll give you their reasons from their point of view, and they're absolutely right in their points of view too. You know? So it is sad, but what can you do about it? You got to move on, mate.
Yeah,
you got to move on. One day, Nintendo may collapse. One day.
So you didn't decide to stay in the gaming industry at all? You thought that was
no.
it, or?
Well, I didn't have a choice. I had to go. So I had to. I left that job and ended up working in electrical retail.
Yeah.
I still played games after that.
Yeah.
I think the only real connection that any of the other guys had after Sega, Tim, as I mentioned earlier before, he worked for Time Zone in Bondi Junction. So it was good because it'd be like closing time. Then we come around and says, "Oh, can you give us a?" So he just opened up the whole arcade to us, and we would get free credits for everything. So this is when Mortal Kombat came out, those sorts of games. So we were playing around with those. So
nice.
Yeah, but I don't know. You just sort of grow up, and then you don't really have the time so much to play them, and you've got other big things to worry about, like what we're sitting in right now, the house, and paying off the mortgage. Yeah. But I still played every now and again through that time, and now I'm playing a little bit more often because, as I say, I'm slowly coming out of retirement.
Do you ever pick up one of the old classics that you used to play in the day and just play through it just for kicks and just go,
I remember those good old days. So I was playing the Master System the other day, and I was playing Hang On, because that was one of the first games I ever had.
Yeah.
And I was playing away with it, and it's really funny the total recall you go through, because I start remembering where the turns are.
Yeah.
And because the turn doesn't just start off as a normal turn, it sort of changes its angle and gets sharper. And that was really weird. Another weird thing, I was playing Rocket Knight Adventures myself a few weeks ago. It's so funny because I got up to a certain boss and I wasn't beating him. I thought, oh God, what am I going to do here? I said, hang on, I did a walkthrough for this.
Yeah.
So I looked at my own walkthrough from 1993 to give myself advice how to get past that boss.
Wow.
Took about turn full circle.
Yeah.
It's like I'm talking to younger me, listening to the younger me, teaching older me how to get through a game.
That's awesome. That's good.
Yeah, taking my own advice. Weird.
Wow. Oh man, I couldn't even imagine what it would have been like to work in the industry back then. I just remember just playing the old games and just no internet, obviously. All your walkthroughs these days are on YouTube or...
Well, games had to be good.
Yeah.
From the outset, you had no real second chance.
Yeah.
When you uploaded the game onto the ROM,
yep,
that had to be the final product, and it had to be a good product. So obviously there were a lot of crap games out there, but there were some absolute pearlers. And I got asked one time, were the games all pretty much finished? Were there any glitches? And really, there weren't. I mean, it could have been a crap game, but there weren't any glitches with sprites or things not opening up. If the graphics all got, sort of froze in the middle of a game, it's simply because there's a problem with the actual cartridge itself with the teeth, the old blow on the card.
Yeah, the old dust blowout.
But they had to be a good product. And that was the other thing about our job, because, like you're saying, we did reviews and that, but we would also get games before they were released.
Yep.
And the most memorable one I keep on talking about is seeing Street Fighter 2 for the first time I think it was about 3 or 6 months before it had been released. And the way we got it was that they were all in ROMs.
Okay.
And what you had was like this huge motherboard that you plugged into the top of the Mega Drive. Yeah. And you put the chips into that, and then you saw the game.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so you saw things before anyone else. So we saw things like Cool Spot. The other guys, because I came in just after Sonic had been released, so they would see Sonic for the first time. Yeah. You see so many games that nobody else would see, and it would help us because it would help us prepare the database as best as we can. But really, when really good games came through, not much work would get done.
I bet.
Especially Street Fighter 2, that was mind blowing.
I bet it would have been back then.
Yeah.
Well, we'll start wrapping things up here.
No worries, man.
Before we let you go, we got to ask you the old questions that we do on Game Train. The old lame and hype train. So we're going to start off with the lame train. What's something you're not that keen on in the industry?
Loot boxes, anything where you have to pay more even after you've paid so much for a game. And there's no such thing as a free game, guys. There absolutely isn't.
Yep.
It costs money. I often think that, look, if a game's supposed to be so good, why do you have to keep on paying more to make it better? I know it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I get that. But this is why a lot of people are turning back to retro games, because they buy it once. It might not have as big of an open world as GTA or that, but it's just there, and you pay for it once, and you're happy and you're content. And the other thing I don't like about today's games is that it's getting a little bit too competitive between, like, you've got these, matches, we got League of Legends. I'm trying to think of the name.
Esports.
Yeah, esports, yes. Yes, that's good. I like esports.
Yeah.
I don't like the people that take it too seriously.
Yeah.
That's, at the end of the day, you're playing a game. Remember, it's a game. Just remember that. Nice. I don't like that too much, sadly.
All right, well, let's roll into the hype train. Hype train. What's something that's got you excited about the gaming industry at the moment, or something that you're looking forward to?
It's not really a game to say, but they're going to be doing console wars as, I don't know whether it's going to be a movie or it's going to be a series, a TV series, which talks about the war between Sega and Nintendo at the time.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, the book is out. You can read the book. How far they're going to be able to do movie/TV series as to how deep they can go. But you read the book and it's just crazy ass shit that was going on, because you got to understand, okay, here in Australia, Sega was big.
Yeah.
Nintendo was not always king.
Yeah.
You've got to remember that. Sega had about 60-70% of the market share here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not what you say, everything's got Mario on it. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Everybody was buying the Sega because they looked at the Nintendo the NES, the first one, and they looked at it and said, "Oh yeah, the gameplay's good, but it just looks like crap."
Yeah.
You go to Mega Drive or the Master System, it looks so much better. So it wasn't always Nintendo's way. And talking about Sega of America, it was a different story. Nintendo was king of the hill there, and then Sega brought it back down to 50-50, even a little bit more than that. So they had a larger market share because they had a different attitude. They weren't all pretty and nice. You've got to look at Sega back then like the Bart Simpson of video game companies. Bit of attitude, cheeky and all that. Yeah. They weren't, that clean to say. So everybody got drawn towards that because they loved the attitude. They were very daring. Yeah. Yeah, so it's well worth reading the book, and I'm looking forward to seeing the show.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to have to look up that book now and check it out. It sounds really good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this first episode of The Platform.
Oh, my pleasure, as I said.
If anyone wants to track you down on social media, how do they find you?
Well, it's simply at Tim Gadler, the most boring handle that's out there, so I've got to find something a little bit more creative. So, Gadler. That's the surname.
Nice.
And I'm always, look, I post up a little thing here or there, but I'm thinking about doing a little bit more than usual, but I just don't know where to take it. It just seems that every time I speak to another person on a podcast, I go, it tells more stories and all that. So I'm really not sure where I'm going to take it. So, just watch the space and see what we can do, man.
Nice. And also, for anyone that wants to follow more Game Train stuff, you can find us at www.gametrainpodcast.com, facebook.com/GameTrainPodcast, Instagram at GameTrainPodcast, or on Twitter at GameTrainTalk. Again, Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for coming all the way out here to my house.
It's been a pleasure. And remember, guys, next week, Callan and I will be back with the normal show, all our normal reviews, etc., etc. But yeah, this has been Game Train's The Platform.